how important do you think it is to have more of those critical minds on the opposing end in the room at almost at all times? And do you think there's a space for that in Western academia? And are they inviting of that, of people who come from a different background, from a Muslim background, giving their opinion as well on these kinds of issues?
So, in an academic space, especially I would say in private schools, they're much more open to your disagreements and your ideas, and most professors will actually appreciate it, especially if it's not emotional, if it's backed by evidence, and you're making sense, right? They're not going to go against it. They're not that invested into the argument that they're going to fight you on it. And if you're making a good point, they'll actually respect you for it. However, one thing to note is that you asked how important is it for a person to have this critical thinking. So my question is, how many Muslims are actually equipped with this critical thinking? Because your average Muslim goes into university generally seeking some kind of education for a profession, a job, and they have to take electives. So they're thinking, okay, let me take something in Islamic studies. I'm probably going to enjoy this. And then you're kind of hit with different ideas that are not necessarily there to confuse you or not confuse you, but ultimately, if you're not equipped with the right kind of tools for critical thinking, they might actually distort the way you used to think about Islam, right? And I'll just give you, another example of this. I was taking a class on, Spanish colonization, and one of the readings actually that was assigned for that course, the author was arguing that the Spanish, when they actually went and conquered, in South America, they had this like 2-page document that they would read. It was called The Requirement, right? And the requirement basically stated that, in Spanish, obviously these South Americans have absolutely no clue what the person on this boat that just showed up in the morning is saying. They have no clue, but the guy goes on in a speech telling them that we will kill you, we will take all your wealth, we will rape your women, and this is actually your fault because we invited you to Christianity, but you did not accept Christianity. We invited you to pledge allegiance to the King of Spain, and you didn't. Obviously, these guys have no clue what on earth this guy on the ship is saying, right? So, and then they would go and conquer and colonize those places. Her argument was this is taken from Muslims. This requirement document, Muslims are actually the inventors of this. And her argument is, if you take the hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari where the Prophet ﷺ sends letters to the kings, what does he say? He says, Aslim taslam, right? If you accept Islam, he gives them a command, accept Islam. You accept Islam, you are safe, right? And she goes on to make an argument about, where does, Aslim come from, where does taslam come from, and so on and so forth. So, number one, when I wrote the paper in response to this, I wrote like 15 pages basically disagreeing with her. She made multiple mistakes in Arabic, so I corrected some of those mistakes. I explained how she was misunderstanding the hadith. Taslam does not mean that you gain safety in this world from the Muslim armies. The Muslim armies don't care actually to conquer you or not, right? They care about safety and establishing, Islamic law. But what actually Aslim Taslam means is that you will gain safety from the hellfire, right? Because ultimately we actually, in Islam, we don't believe in justice on this earth. You cannot grant justice on this earth. Let's say one person, he steals $20 from one person, person A and person B. From person A, they steal $20 and that's the only $20 that this person has. Another person has $20 million and he stole $20 from him. It's not the same for each person. And if you mete out justice and you say, oh, well, he only took $20 here and $20 there, then that's an unfair understanding of what justice should be. So ultimately, if you look at Islamic law also, the structure of Islamic law and even criminal punishment are actually just deterrents, right? It's not retributive. It's not meant to take revenge on the person, right? Because why? We don't believe in justice on this earth. So Aslim Taslam does not mean you will be saved from us Muslim armies, but rather what it means is that you will be saved from the hellfire. So anyways, I made that entire argument. But the idea is, imagine a Muslim person who is unacquainted with hadith and shuruh of hadith, commentaries of hadith, and the critical thinking that the commentators of hadith actually teach us. Hafidh ibn Hajar rahimahullah that you mentioned, just for إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, as he comments, it's dozens and dozens of pages that he writes just on that, right? Al-Aini, who was his contemporary, also from Egypt, Badruddin Al-Aini, the Hanafi scholar, in his book Al-Binaya, when he discusses is it sunnah or is it mustahab to say Bismillah before wudu, he spends 10 pages on that. going through every single hadith, its chains, and just trying to assess, should we say sunnah, should we say mustahab, right? So the muhaddithun teach us to think critically, right? How many Muslims are actually equipped with that, right, going into college? So you're just swallowing this stuff because why? You see some reference, another reference, you see this person has referred to some Arabic dictionary, but you've never touched that dictionary. So you don't even know if the person is actually doing due diligence, are they doing a good job or not, right? So I would say, it's extremely important, to answer your question, it's extremely important for a person to have that level of critical thinking.
If I was sitting in that class as well, and I wasn't well equipped with the knowledge of the seerah that I have, the little that I do know, I would have fell for that line of propaganda that Islam was spread by the sword. And I can name dozens of moments in the seerah that argues against that case, especially when the Prophet ﷺ came back after 10 years to reclaim Mecca for himself. And he marched in and he enacted justice in such a fair way that he didn't just slaughter everybody, the Quraysh who were non-Muslim and non-believing at the time.
And who also tortured them and punished them and even went so far to murder his own children. Mm-hmm. What does he do?
Exactly. He forgives them all, almost. He gives a blanket amnesty to majority of the people. Some people who were a little too aggressive in their behavior, they were brought to justice. But the majority of people...
And you're forgetting to mention that he mentioned specifically some of the top enemies of Islam and the Muslims and of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he says, anyone who seeks refuge in the house of Abu Sufyan, he is safe. Right? So, this is something that's unparalleled. You'll never find an example of this in history. This level of mercy. And this goes to show the point that I was mentioning, that Islam is not about seeking revenge on a person. Aslim Taslam has nothing to do with this world. It has to do with the akhirah.
The hereafter.